Hello, everyone. This is Esther Kane, and I wanted to begin this. I wanted to do this little intro because when I did the interview with Jackie Haddon, we just went right into conversation. There was so much to share and so much to learn from her that I don't think we did a proper introduction. So I wanted to do that right here at the very beginning. Jackie Haddon is a realtor in Portland, Oregon, but she has specialty training in working with older adults and in what they need and could use as they're looking to age in place. She has the SRES certification for realtors, which gives her that training. But in addition to that, she is also a certified aging in place specialist. She also has universal design certified professional, not a degree, but certification in universal design. She's also an accessibility consultant. I mean, she is everything, that you need in someone to help you not only identify the things that you need in a home to make it safe and enjoyable and, amazing for whatever it is that you're going to be doing with that home, either aging in place, or raising a family, or anything. So buying or selling, it's certainly, she is the person to reach out to. And if I lived in Portland, Oregon, I would certainly be using her. So here is the interview with Miss Jackie Haddon. She has a lot to say, and I think you're going to learn quite a bit from her. So thank you very much for tuning in, and here is the interview. Hi, Jackie.
Hi. Oh my goodness.
It's always something. Tech is so great when it works
I
and
know. And
sucks when it
so,
doesn't.
yeah, there's nothing more humbling than trying to navigate everything.
I know. I tell everybody, don't worry about being perfect or being an expert because nobody is, especially nowadays with AI. It's constantly changing every day.
Yeah, well, it seems like you've got it pretty nailed down. You're all over the place on LinkedIn, social media.
I'm
You've got
trying.
all the things.
I'm trying. I really want to boost up the aging in place directory because I get so many calls, well, not calls, but texts and emails from people
Mhm.
looking for the services. And at this point, if I don't have anybody in that area, and it's usually rural areas.
Mhm.
So if I don't have anyone in that area, then I go online and I hunt for them and then I send them a list. But I mean, hunting for them is crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Find one person on Facebook, hardly anybody has a website, maybe another one on LinkedIn, maybe, the National Association of Home Builders is the worst directory
Horrible.
website I've ever seen. And a lot of them that are on there aren't even doing it anymore.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a mess. It's really a mess. So it just makes sense to have a thing. And then so many people who are in the industry or in the niche aren't talking to other people in the niche. You know, I can't believe how many contractors or builders or whatever, handymen, whatever, aren't talking with designers
I
or
know.
declutterers or, I don't know, estate planners or reverse mortgage people or, I mean, I don't know.
It is astounding. And I talked to, so I'm on the board of the National Association of the Remodeling Industry here in the Pacific Northwest, and I do their Universal Design Certified Professional trainings. So I'm doing one this week, starting a new session this week,
Cool.
which is NAHB's correlative to CAPS, right?
Right.
So, but
Right.
for
I
con,
took
but
that. Yeah, I took that when I took the caps. I took that
the
also.
UDCP, yeah. Um, so I'm talking with contractors all the time, just for all different aspects of my world. And I'm just shocked at how, like you say, how siloed everything is, right? Where I'm like, well, why don't you have even to the like there's a guy here locally and our kids are the same age. We are on the board together. He's just the sweetest human in the world. And he has a really high quality, smaller design build firm. And he knows all about what I do. And I took him out to lunch and I was like, listen, I know you'll give me honest feedback. Let me pick your brain. Why have you not called me for an accessibility consultation? So is there, what is it? Because I need to have that feedback. I don't really understand. Of anyone, I would think he would be the one that would call, right?
Sure.
Are you not doing that work? Or like, what's happening? And he said, well, it's just, Jackie, part of the way we work, we build what people ask us to build. And so if someone comes in and they want a kitchen or a bathroom and they don't, I mean, we'll suggest, hey, what about a curbless shower? But if they don't want it, what are we going to do? And I was like, gosh, that's so interesting. And I said, so are you feeling like it's upselling somehow to talk about aging? And he said, sort of, but also people get really offended, right? If I say, have you thought about aging in place? And I said, all right, I get that. I mean, obviously people do when I talk about it too. And so we ended up we talked for an hour, we had lunch, and by the end of it, and at one point I just couldn't get a way to shift his thinking of it wasn't his place to suggest. And then finally I was like, okay, Mike, so tell me this. If someone tells you they want to remodel their kitchen and you open up the wall and there's problems with the plumbing, do you just close back the wall and not say anything because they didn't ask you to redo the plumbing? And he's like, well, no, obviously, I'll say this is what it's going to cost, but it's much more efficient to do this now. If your goal is to not remodel down the road, you should be doing this now. And I was like, great, that is what you should be talking about with your clients.
Yeah.
If their goal is to be in this home they just paid to remodel for the next 20 years and they are 60 years old, then it is your job as a responsible, ethical contractor to say, hey, I hear this is your goal and I'm hearing that you want these things. I'm going to suggest if you want to be here for the next 20 years, we do some changes to make it available to you for the next 20 years, right? It's not upselling, it's being a steward of your craft,
Right.
right? And so, because they're going to come back to you in 10 years and
Yeah.
say, we needed grab bars, we needed a curbless shower, and you're saving them money, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Maybe.
it was like a
But
light bulb went on. He was like, oh.
oh.
And I said, so you don't have, and I said, I can come train your sales staff. I can train your design team. He has a lovely designer on his team, and I can do all the training. And you don't need me all the time. Once you're trained up, you don't need me to talk to your clients. Ivy, your designer, can talk to your clients.
Right.
But until then, you need someone to help you to show you how to have the conversations, to give you the words because you're a contractor. You don't have a social work training like I do, right? You're not an accessibility person, you're not a social worker. So I get
Exactly.
why it's hard. Nobody wants to hear it. So let me give you different words to just talk about being a sensible steward of your home, right?
Right. I think you're right. I think it's about the words. I think the
Mhm.
phrase aging in
Oh,
place is the turnoff.
yeah.
There's a contractor here in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and there's a contractor here who calls it accessible living. He doesn't even say anything about
Right.
aging. He's like, it's a accessible living. How do you make the living room, the bathroom, whatever? So as you say, so that 20 years from now, it's easy and you don't have to spend more money to
Yeah.
change it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think coming from that angle, you're absolutely right. I mean, you should write an article about that and put it on LinkedIn,
I
you
should
know.
write an article about that.
Definitely, because yeah, use AI to help you because it can do it so easily. But
Well, and it's the aging in place and grab bars. It's like those are the two
yeah,
worst like combinations of words you can say in the
yeah, yeah.
human language,
So
as far as I can tell.
I know. So talk about something else, Don't even
Yeah.
mention grab bars. Just say, I don't know. I honestly don't even know. That would be an interesting conversation to have with there's a program called Notebook LM. Have you heard of it?
Mhm.
Okay, it's a great little program that I think you can do 3 entries for free or you can do a monthly thing. I think it's $20. I don't know what it is. But anyway, whatever. You can put in a YouTube video, you can put in articles, up to 50 articles, you can
Mhm.
put in anything, and then it will create an audio for you of two people talking, not reading the information, but talking about it like a podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so the program scans that information and then discusses it. You can also create a video, which is these great videos with this one, two, three, breaking it all down. But now they have a debate section. So you can put in the information, and then the two people that discuss the information debate it.
You know, Esther, I think so my middle child just went off to college, and I was talking to someone else, and I think they were telling me about this as how their daughter studies, because she has a
Yes,
really hard time with visual process. I mean, just she doesn't
yes,
visually process things. And I think she told me about this because then she has this long commute back and forth to school, and she
yes.
listens to people discussing the issue, which is a more
Yeah,
relevant, a more really resonates with her more in terms of education.
yeah.
That's so interesting.
It is Notebook LM. It's from
Okay.
Google. Just go to Notebook LM, but
Okay.
it gives you a study guide. It gives you frequently asked questions. It's amazing the things that
Wow.
it does. And what I like about it is that it just gives you a different perspective of how to do
Hmm.
things. And for me, I'm taking my articles and I'm putting them in there and creating the podcast audio. And then I'm doing
Interesting.
some videos too. And I just saw an article by somebody on LinkedIn, a really great article on the sandwich generation. And it was so good. I put it into Notebook LM, created the video, and sent it to her. I said, here, send this out because it's a great way to market your article without people having to read the entire article.
Yeah.
Because people have short-term
Right.
attention span. Yeah. So a 7-minute video is easier than a 10-minute read for some people,
That's
whatever.
so good.
Yeah.
And I find when I have the actual conversations, and we joke about because so we do this presentation, we do a numerous presentations to realtors and homeowners and contractors. But the one that gets the most press, especially with realtors, is called Can Grab Bars Be Sexy? And so it's all about like making it fun, making it cool. And then we bring in, sometimes we do them on Zoom. It's more fun to do them in person because then we bring in all of these beautiful grab bars and people can
Yeah.
play with them and talk with them and we tell jokes about them and talk about all the different ways we use them. And one of the things I talk about is don't talk about aging in place with your clients unless they use that terminology,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because what you can talk about, what's going to change the narrative is you sharing stories about times in your life when you have needed something to hang on to, right? Or
Yep.
when you have fallen,
Yep.
recovering from the flu, a hard workout at the gym,
Yep.
weeding in the backyard, a car accident. Just
Yep.
use stories people can relate to that are all across the aging spectrum and kind of bring in this later end of the spectrum at some point. And one of the stories I use the most that makes people laugh is this same child that just went off to college. He is the most active child. And so he would jump everywhere, jump, 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 all the time, jumping, jumping, including in the shower, which did not have a grab bar. And he had a slightly oversized head. My husband also has a big head. So when he was learning to walk, and we had hardwood floors, he was just falling all the time. He'd pull himself up on the couch and then tip over and hit his head on the floor. So it was this horrible joke that we'd be like, well, 2 more IQ points, okay, he's never going to cure cancer. Um, but he would jump in the shower and we'd say like, don't jump in the shower. You keep falling. It's wet. It's slippery. And I didn't want to shower with him all the time. But he just did. He was active, he was bouncy, he couldn't stop. And so I say, like, had I had a grab bar in the shower,
Yeah.
he would 100% have hung on to it because he would have been able to jump higher, right? He
That's
would have
true.
really been able to catch air
That's
and he wouldn't have fallen because he would have been holding on to something, right? So it's
that's
not about, and if he wasn't in the shower, we would have hung our swimsuits from it, right? We were in our 30s, we weren't thinking about anything.
sure.
Um, but and he would have saved his a few IQ points. And all the rest of our family history, when someone has had a sports injury, when I've put my back out, when someone's had during COVID, when everybody's
Right.
dizzy and sick with COVID, we would have hung on to something,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And so yes, aging, and that's such a small part of your life when you can fall, right? Like you can
It's true.
fall
It's
all the
true.
time.
But the
Yeah.
thing is, it only takes a second.
It only takes
It
a second.
only takes 1 second for that
Yeah.
accident to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
I worked in with geriatrics, neurological impairments. So I got all kinds of head injuries,
Mhm.
Alzheimer's, dementia, but the head injuries were the ones that just I mean, it was so upsetting to get a
Mhm.
client who was active, dancing, archery, doing whatever, and they tripped over a rug, they crashed into a coffee table, going down the stairs with some laundry, whatever, and 1 second they fell,
Mhm.
cracked their head, and that's the end of it. And it didn't
Yeah.
have to be. It
Yeah.
didn't have to be. It's so sad.
Yeah.
And it's just like, don't you want to stay independent? So
Right.
do the things you need to do to stay independent,
Yeah.
you know? I mean,
And everybody, I was just at a home this past week. The son, I'd done a presentation, and the adult son called me and said, "Hey, I kind of want you to come out and assess my parents' house." And I went out, gorgeous house. Money's certainly not an issue in this family. Beautiful, single level, well, daylight ranch. But they were everything so easy to age in. And really only needed, I just sent off the report. Didn't need a lot, to make it easy for them. Grab bars, a couple things. And they'll do all that now. But when I got there, the father who was very polite, had no interest in talking to me. And he had this huge welt on his head because he had just fallen, which is what triggered his child to make this call. So I'm meeting with the adult son, the father, and the mother. The mother is clearly very active, has the most beautiful posture I've ever seen in my life. I'm sure she does yoga like 5 times a day. Um, Husband's a little bit older with this massive welt on his head, right? So he is like, I'm going to let you talk to them. I don't really think we need any of this. And then as I'm talking about, the ridiculousness of being human, like our bodies are not meant to, to really do the things we need to do. They can end up being frail. And we will always protect our bodies. When we start falling, we're going to grab something. And
right,
hopefully, this something is going to help us and that doesn't make it worse. And so I'm telling this story about we're going to walk through the house. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to look from the perspective of if I fell right now, what would I grab? And that's the feedback I'm going to give you. So, just understand that's the process. And I said something about, so if I stood up right now and I grabbed this chair, I would fall over, right? The chair is
yeah,
not,
you and the
the chair's not
chair.
heavy enough. So this is not a solid oak, chair that was, Victorian chair that's going to keep me up. It's going to fall. And he kind of laughed and he was like, yeah, right. And I was like, okay. Like, I need you to get on board with what I'm saying. And it was very funny and lovely and jokey. But it was then, and then he started warming up to it, right? He was
Yeah,
like, "You're not gonna, you don't want to come in here and put grab bars everywhere." And I was
right,
like, "You don't want another one of those on your head, right?
right,
So let's have a
exactly.
real conversation about the fact that we fall. It
Right,
doesn't need to be embarrassing. It's not about you getting older. It makes it harder to heal, sure, but I can fall as easily in this house as you can from that dumb, really expensive rug that's on your carpet that I just tripped on. You just watched me trip on it.
you
So
know,
it helps to have, and it was just and I have, you have these examples, I have these examples. Um, but it's so affirming to me every time I'm in those situations where I'm like, of course we can have these conversations. People are willing to have these conversations. You just need
yeah,
to take the threat out of them and the
yeah,
perceived judgment out of them of you're calling me old. You're
yeah.
calling me old and frail. And if you put that grab bar in my house, it is a signal to everyone I love that I'm about to die. Right?
Right, right. Because at the end of the day, it's emotional. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, I mean, it's financial too. I get it,
Sure.
but it's emotional. No
Yeah.
one wants to admit they're getting older. No one wants to admit that they can't do what they did when they were 20, or 30 or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're right. You are so right in approaching it with humor and approaching it with relatability. Look, I tripped over this rug and whatever. I mean, anybody can do it. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean anything, for you. But the point is, you don't want another one of those, or
Yeah.
a broken
And
shoulder or knee
right.
or hip or whatever is going to
Well,
happen. Plus, the
I think
reality is, as
too,
you said, as you get
yeah,
older, it takes a lot longer to heal.
it takes a lot longer to heal.
It
And I
does.
talk a lot once I'm able, like kind of once I use the humor to get in, I talk a lot about just the reality of grief and identity
Yeah.
change and mortality. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is, you can do this now, or you can do this in the middle of grieving the loss of who you were. right?
Right.
So you can be working with a contractor when it's just an annoying remodel, or you can be working with a contractor when you are grieving your husband's mortality, right?
Right.
When do you think you're going to make better decisions,
Right.
right?
It's about, right. I like to talk about the fact that it's a choice. You can, because now you have the ability to control the situation. You have
Mhm.
the choice of what to do, when to do, in order to prevent anything, whatever. But later on, if something were to happen and you ended up in a wheelchair or whatever, then choices are become limited because
Yeah,
then you have to do it right then and there.
yeah.
So picking the contractor, getting all the, tile and whatever, it's all, it becomes a big blur and you end up making mistakes because you weren't able to take the time and the choices are taken out of your hands.
Hmm.
And who wants that? Everybody wants to be in control of their own house, of course. So, yeah, I mean, prevention, we all know prevention is something humans don't tend to do very well.
Hmm.
So how do you, the conversation is very, very important. Very
Well, and it's
important.
funny, Esther, because it is something we like. I think about being a mom to young children, right? I bet there's safety stuff all over my house, right? I was very aware that
Yeah,
that glass coffee table could like kill my child, right? I was hyper aware, more aware than I needed to be, right? The first child, like, oh my God, they're so breakable. I've never, I shouldn't even have them. Who gave me a permit for this? And
right.
so there's protecting, ugly things all over the
Yeah,
house to protect them.
yeah,
Um, and then we get to this other phase where we are just, we never stop having the ability to fall. But at
right,
some point, as we get older, it becomes shameful, right? That there's something wrong with us that we're falling versus we have bones and sinews and ligaments, and balance, and we just fall. We're stand upright, which means we could fall down from where
yeah,
we are at any given time. But we do it well, and we do take effort. We wear seatbelts, we wear helmets, we do all sorts of things to protect ourselves. But it's this shame part around aging in our society that makes us want to give the as we get older that suddenly we want to appear as if we need it less, right? And so
yeah,
I think it's such a funny thing. And I think with my higher end clients as well, what comes up a lot, and this leads into the certification we have, is we have all these things and all these things are great. And then they say, I don't want to spend all this money only to have to take it all out when I sell this home. I'm like, yeah, so we're not going to. And part of being planful now is we're going to get you really high-end fixtures, right? We're going to do a beautiful job because the house you keep trying to find that you want to downsize into that's really beautiful and ready to remodel and that doesn't exist, which I know because I'm also a realtor. Someone else looking for that house will buy this house, right? We're going to make this house that unicorn everybody's searching for.
right,
So it's safe for you to live in. It's beautiful for you. And when it's time for you to leave this house, if you decide to, someone else has already been searching for this house with this level of finishes, with this beautiful finish. And
right.
so your house will fly off the market for faster because I can tell you you can't find the house you want to move into, and neither can anybody else because the
That's right.
houses don't exist, right?
That's
So,
right. I mean,
and
with,
we
go ahead.
and from that realtor side, we talk a lot about resale, but then we have this home certification program where not only are we talking about resale, but we're making it really easy for realtors to find because it's listed in the MLS. And then we train the realtors on what to look for. How do you use accessible features? How do you tick these boxes in your listing so that people can find what you're looking for and you can be certifying these homes that qualify so that that in itself becomes the searchable feature. The livable home certification becomes the searchable feature because behind that is all the accessible features that, level one means all of these accessible features are there. And it doesn't become this really subjective, like, oh, I don't know what that means. What is a wide hallway? What's a wide doorway? It's very laid out. And all those definitions already exist in the real estate standards organization that is behind every accessible feature that a realtor checks. And no realtor is ever trained on those definitions or how to use accessible features. Nobody. I've never talked to a realtor that even knew that those definitions were there. Never.
Even in the, after you do the SRES,
Yeah. I didn't learn about them. I didn't know. I mean, and maybe I blanked it out, but I didn't know about RESO. I don't even think I'd ever heard that acronym of Real Estate Standards Organization until I started working with Rogue Valley Council of Government with their lifelong housing program, which created the certification. And Connie Saldana, who created it, she was on the board, the data sharing board at RESO. And so it is the definitions from the certification we offer that RESO adopted nationally. It's the same, and those are all ANSI Type A kind of universal design codes. Um, but I had never heard of it, and I'm a realtor until Connie talked about it, and I was like, I don't even know what RESO is.
Yeah.
Now in Southern Oregon, here in Southern Oregon, in her MLS, because she's the first one that got it into her, and they have a little MLS there for realtors. They have, when it has an accessible feature, there's a little question mark in it, and you can hit that and it pulls up the definition. Ours does not. So
Uh,
we are in the rest of almost in the rest of Oregon, the MLS, because I'm in an urban center in Portland. We don't have that. You can't pull up the definition, and people don't know there's a definition to look for, right?
yeah.
And so they're not like, I wonder what an accessible feature is. I'm going to go to RESO that I've never heard of before.
Yeah.
So there's tons of education that go behind it. And when we do that education, because we also offer this certification, that is really that comes into play at time of resale. So it's valid for, it's very valuable for realtors and for then builders who want to market to this demographic, multi-generational young families, people who are aging in place. As we continue to get the word out and work with more builders, and hopefully get some developer contracts, which is what we're working on, that becomes then a standard, right? We understand that we need more accessible housing. We understand we need to build for all ages, all family configurations, all heights, all abilities.
Right.
And and this is how people will know, like LEED certification, right? I don't know all of the things that go behind a LEED certification, but I know that if a building has one, they've probably done a good job with energy, right? Like that's,
Right.
which is fine. I don't have to know everything. It isn't the field I'm in, but similar to accessibility, people don't need to know all the definitions, but they do need to know this is a home they could move in comfortably and they can live in if they have this level of ability, right?
That certification is not just in Oregon, right? It's nationwide.
It's not nationwide yet. So we're
Oh,
working with so we're in Washington and Oregon. We're working with National Aging in Place Council to talk about starting. We've had interest from other states and we just haven't had the whole package ready to roll it out because what
okay.
we don't want to do, we want to be able to make sure that there's quality oversight for the programming, right? We don't want to dilute it and have someone say we're certified and then no one actually went out to see if it was certified. So we've been putting a lot of effort into making sure that we have a really strong package and that we have the ability to do the administrative oversight, that if someone wants to bring a certification program to their community, that we can make sure that it stays in integrity with the program itself out here. So National Aging in Place Council has shown some interest in helping with that rollout and taking that on as an advocacy project for them. And they've talked about in the initial conversations we've had, which there's a million conversations that have to happen, but in the conversations we've had, talked about potentially targeting Georgia and Maryland as two of the first places because they have presence in Georgia and Maryland. So
Oh, ooh,
yeah,
Georgia. All
I
right.
know. See?
You knew. That is cool. I love that idea because I mean, 10,000 plus people a day turning 65 till 2030, 40. I don't know. And then the next generation
Yeah.
is going to go. So it's just the demographic is there, the need is there. I hope builders do more one story, ranch homes. If not, I understand, land. I get it. They can put more housing on land. Then okay, then install residential elevators. Whatever it
Hmm.
is to make it safer. And as you say, not just for aging, but
Hmm.
for accessibility for all age groups. I
Hmm.
mean, all age groups. So I love that. Now I want to understand how, I mean, I became an OT and then an internet marketer and now a blogger. I mean, I understand you going from one to the other. So Jackie, tell me how you went from one to the other.
Yes. Well, I've been a social worker, a clinical social worker, and that's been my professional background. And so did a lot of had a private practice in therapy. I ran a mental health agency. So a lot of just interaction with, the obstacles people have to live well in their life, right? Whether that's mental health, behavioral or physical.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, end of 2018, maybe, my father-in-law was diagnosed with ALS.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And they were living in Southern Oregon in a house that had been designed for someone to live in with a wheelchair. So they had an elevator, big wide spaces, curbless shower, all of that. But what they weren't was near family, nor were they near an ALS clinic. So up here in Portland, which is about 6, 7 hour drive from where they were, um, there's a very, very renowned ALS clinic through the Providence Health System. So they knew that they wanted to be closer to us. They were on 5 acres out in this beautiful wine country. They knew they wanted to be closer to us. They knew they needed to be closer to an ALS clinic to get the help. So they moved up closer to us. But in that time, so he was diagnosed the end of 2019. He just had a limp and they thought he had a pinched nerve. So he went in for a surgical consult for a pinched nerve in his hip and came out with this diagnosis. They got a second opinion in San Francisco. They were told it was a slow progressing type, not genetic, slow progressing, which was all good news. So they started looking for homes up here. Again, I was running this mental health agency, not in real estate. My cousin was in real estate. And so I said, I want you to help them find this house. So they're looking at houses. They, again, in terms of identity, they couldn't come to terms. They didn't know what was coming, right? And they didn't want to know what was coming. They were, wealthy world travelers. They'd just come back from trekking in Burma, right? So
Yeah.
this is what they wanted. They wanted property. They wanted beauty, animals. Anyway, so looking at houses, and my cousin kept calling me saying, like, the houses they keep wanting to look at are insane, Jackie. Your father-in-law can't, from week to week, he can get up less and less stairs, and I can't get them to look at something that's one level. And so finally, they bought the world's worst, terrible home. Huge home, curving stairway, no primary on the main, no full bath on the main, a big deck looking out over a canyon. It took stairs to get down to the canyon. I mean, honestly, it was. But anyway, it's what they wanted. This is what they felt comfortable in. It was big and it was generous and it had a gourmet kitchen, and room for their animals. So in the 2 months it took for them to decide to move, find a house, and move in, he was in a wheelchair.
Wow.
And they'd had a chairlift installed because he was already having difficulty walking. They recognized maybe he'll have trouble getting up the stairs. So they had a stair lift involved, but he was already in a wheelchair by the time they moved in. And by 3 months after that, he'd lost his voice and he was in a power wheelchair. He was no longer mobile at all.
Wow.
So I went down to half time in my administrator role to help care for him. My husband's a teacher, so I would sort of do days with my mother-in-law. My husband would do, and he and his brother would split evenings, and we would all kind of split weekends. So it was not slow progressing. It was incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so we were taking care of him as a family, and I was so and the first thing we had to do almost immediately is renovate their bathroom upstairs because he couldn't get into it. We knew he was now in a wheelchair. It wasn't wheelchair friendly. So I helped run that, teaching myself about accessibility, working with contractors who were very skilled but weren't coming at it from the lens of accessibility,
Well,
nor were they coming at it from the lens of predictive analysis of what was going to come next, right?
how
They
did
didn't
he
know
get up?
about
How did he get upstairs?
the chairlift.
Oh, the chairlift.
So
Okay.
we would
Okay. Okay.
transfer
Okay.
him from the power chair. He'd ride up and we'd transfer him to a manual wheelchair. And then we'd push him around on the thick carpet. It was great. Um, and
Wow.
then we'd transfer him into their high bed because she didn't want an adjustable bed. So much of it was just this identity piece. She
Yeah.
she didn't she wanted him to sleep in bed with her in their regular bed in their regular life, right? And we weren't living in regular life anymore.
Right.
Anyway, so we remodeled this bathroom, did this huge, very, very expensive project. It was beautiful. About a month later, he could no longer use the chairlift because he had lost torsal control.
Mm.
So then we had to move downstairs, but there is no full bathroom downstairs and there is no bedroom downstairs. And so it became the next remodeling project. And I helped with that as well, of again looking at how do we redesign this? Okay, it needs to be a wet room. We need to change the orientation. We only have limited space, all these things. So we got that done also. And then he had maybe 3 weeks to a month before he was just permanently in his wheelchair. He no longer used that bathroom. So and then he died 13 months after his diagnosis. So of the 13 months of his life, we spent minimum 5 months in a remodeling project. And he
Right.
was never able to use the end result for more than a month. So at least $80,000, at least 5 months of his 13 months of life. All of this was incredibly hard for us. The emotional part, the anticipatory grief. I'm the trained social worker. And so I was sort of like, I could put my professional face on and do all these different things. But of course, it was terribly emotional. It's also, for people that haven't encountered ALS, it is the most terrible disease. It's also
It is.
very, very boring to care for someone with ALS. So, in between health crises and having to go to the bathroom and like dropping someone when you're trying to transition them, like there's all these things that are ridiculous and scary and sometimes funny, but just terrible about what your life becomes with ALS. But
Yeah.
in between that, you're just sitting around. You're
Right.
not doing anything, right? Um, and so my father-in-law and I started talking. He was using a whiteboard by that point, but he was very funny even on a whiteboard. But we started talking, and I was like, I'm so pissed off that this is what we're doing. I would rather just be focused on you. We know what's happening. You're obviously not going to live very much longer, right? Which is awful. And so I would rather be being with you than remodeling your bathroom again. And I'm
Right.
so irritated that you guys bought this house. And I get why. And there was nothing that was of the quality they wanted that didn't hit all their buttons about infirmity and mortality that they could
Mhm.
just move into. So I said, I could do this better. I could make houses. It is a crime that houses are built only for people who walk upright and who are apparently 5'8". Like anyone who's short or anyone who's not walking, is not supposedly supposed to live in a home, apparently in this country. Um, so I said I could do this better. I could build these houses. I could sell these houses. So I decided to take, so he was like, well, you should take your real estate license. And I was like, oh, right, I guess I should learn about the housing industry because I'm a social worker. So while I was caring for him, I studied for my test. He would help me study for my test. And then he ended up dying 3 weeks before COVID hit. So, which was itself a blessing. We could all be with him in the hospital, but
Right.
then the country shut down, the world shut down. And so it wasn't until a year later that I got a reminder that I had to take this test, to get my license of these
Right.
things I studied for. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm like, I better take it because I don't want to study again.
Sure.
Passed it and then immediately decided, you know what, this is what I want to do. This is really where my heart is. I can blend my social work heart with
Yes.
my creativity and design. Running a mental health clinic that served over 2,000 people and supervising 50 therapists through COVID, that was a lot.
Wow.
Um, so I was burnout before then, but then I was like really toasty after COVID.
I bet. So
And
you're
so
not
I
doing
said,
the work now, are you?
I kept a private practice for a while, a small private practice, and I'm not doing it anymore. It just was too much. But I was able, I joked that I couldn't really go from social work into real estate without something that would appease my ego. My ego was too weak. I needed like a professional do-gooders card, which I got from being a social worker, and you don't get when you're a realtor. You just get like, I am a capitalist and I'm here to take your money card, which I don't like that card. So I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to create this homes. I want to help people age in place. I want to help people who get devastating diagnoses not have to remodel their homes all the time. Like this is what I can do. So I immediately got my senior real estate specialist, which helped me with the aging. Then I went and got my CAPS to do the aging in place specialist, and I started doing free home assessments for seniors in my community. And so doing educational talks, I was going to community centers. I was connecting with people, doing aging fairs, hosting aging fairs, connecting with all these organizations, as well as developing a directory of contractors who I felt comfortable sending into people's homes,
Yeah.
whether it was a widowed woman, whether it was a trans couple, whether it was a BIPOC family. like trying to find contractors who didn't feel threatening to them when they came in their home. Because as you know, if you're just Googling resources, generally what you come up with is a white male contractor, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
there are many wonderful white male contractors, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of them, and they're not all wonderful. And even if you are, you know, even as a woman, when you have a contractor come into your home, generally, if there's a man in the home, they talk to the man in the home, which is
Right.
always funny in my family because I am for sure the builder and my husband is not. And I will make the call, schedule the call, talk to the contractor, and they come in the door and talk to him. And he's like, why am I even here? Like you are talking to the wrong person, buddy. Um, so that, you know, the layers of that get so much
Yes.
whenever you're from a more marginalized community, that just gets
Yes.
even more scary to to have someone you don't know enter your home. Anyway,
Exactly.
so I was doing all that simultaneously, and then realized more and more what was really feeding me was doing these home assessments and helping people find a way to stay in their home when they were being told either by the care providers in their life or by their super concerned kids that it wasn't safe, right? And the person was like, "Don't, I am the parent. I know what's safe," even if they didn't really, but they didn't want to be taken care of. And it felt scary to leave. They didn't want to leave. They had their friends, they had their book clubs. And so every time I was able to go into someone's home and help find a way for them to stay. It was just so incredibly fulfilling for me. And that really, I thought, this is what I wanted. This is where I want to put my energy, and this is really fulfilling the reason I started this of helping people be in their homes easily and helping create homes that really that aged with them across their whole spectrum of life, from being a young family with young children to being 85 and, you know, or having a devastating diagnosis and being in a wheelchair, whatever it was, having
Yeah.
homes that could do all that with them seamlessly.
Yeah.
And then at the end of 2023, a friend of mine, she was really trying, she was also a realtor, still is a realtor. She was really wanting to, she'd been working in affordable housing and similar to me, really wanted to be in affordable housing, but was a realtor, didn't have the credential. And I said, you know what, let's just do this. We're just going to make our own houses that people can afford that are totally accessible. And everything happened super quickly. We're like, oh, that sounds like a fun idea. And then I was approached by Rogue Valley because they saw me on LinkedIn and said, hey, would you bring this certification up to Portland? And I was like, I don't even have a logo. So like, I don't know, like, sure, give me 5 minutes to file with this business license.
Yeah.
Um, but that happened. We had an investor come forward and say, "Hey, I want to invest some money. Do you have a piece of land we can buy?" We found a piece of land. Someone bought it that we could develop and create our own homes on. We had an architect we worked with that I worked with through NARI. She's like, "Hey, it's so weird, Jackie. I'm getting really interested in designing accessible homes. Do you know anyone I could work with?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, I do want you." And she's like, I don't even need you to pay me right now. I just want the experience. So like the whole universe came
Wow.
together and was like, do
Wow.
this.
The
This is what
stars
you should be
aligned.
doing.
The stars aligned.
Completely. And it was hilarious the first 6 months. It was literally like we'd be called into a meeting and someone's like, hey, I heard about what you guys are doing. Can you certify this 16
Wow.
unit luxury condos? And we're like, absolutely, 100%. We'll get you a proposal. And then I'm in Canva trying to like create a proposal for, you know, like ridiculous. A lot of smoke and mirrors at the beginning. Um, but
Like most businesses.
right,
That's how
right. I look real good. We're super professional, you
yeah,
know.
well, so that's how Livable Home started, right? Your company.
Yeah.
So who contact like what clients are you looking for? Who do you want to attract to get to call you? And how do they do?
So, well, it was so interesting because that sort of changed over time, right? We thought because I had been doing assessments for people wanting to stay home, my assumption was that, I mean, that's our demographic. That's who needs the services. That's who had been asking me for the services.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then as we started rolling out livable homes and really understanding our business model of knowing, and then we had the certification, which was different from our business, and we
Hmm.
incorporated it into our business. We're like,
Hmm.
oh, this is all really seamless. Suddenly we realized the people who for sure do not want to talk to us off the bat and pay us for our services are the people who want to stay in their homes. Like suddenly that became not our demographic because those were the last people who wanted to talk. we would host conversations. Nobody would come, right? Nobody wanted to talk about aging in place. But who wanted to talk about it was their kids, was the
Right.
sandwich generation.
Right.
And we started getting a lot of interest in builders and remodelers from builders and remodelers. And so we really started shifting that messaging to realtors and to builders and sandwich generation. And as we shifted that, we started seeing like, okay, here's the traction. Here's who has enough emotion involved or enough economic savvy involved to understand, A, there's a market here that we need to build for, and I want my parent. I don't know how to take care of my parents because I'm still parenting and I'm super busy and I have two jobs, but they continue to age and oh my God, what do I do, right?
Sure.
Um, and we realized that how we could get the homeowners, the aging homeowners, to talk to us was if we came in to talk, if we were invited to speak to them through very trusted organizations like a church or like their senior center, like a caregiver support group. And if we could come in that way, then they were so grateful. They were so happy to hear us. But it was that what we hadn't, the connection we hadn't made is that, when you hit this age, when you're post retirement age, all of a sudden there's all these predatory businesses that sort of descend upon you, right? And
Yeah.
trying to sell you things and make you scared of life.
Yeah.
Um, and the approach we were taking was hitting that nerve of where you're trying to take advantage of us and sell us something. So if we can come in through a church or something where they already know they're safe, they're taken care of, no one's trying to hurt them, then they're like, oh, yeah, I do need this. And you are someone who I could trust with all these emotions and all these fears that I'm having. So that's
So
where we
did,
are kind of
did you
now.
shift your because I always think that instead of selling, I think
Hmm.
educating is
Yeah,
really the thing. Just educate. And
yeah,
then if they're interested, if they're able, capable, whatever,
yeah.
then they will come to you to buy. Or at the very least, they have your name in their Rolodex,
Yeah.
you know.
And we had never did a salesy approach, but the way we were presenting it sounded like it was going to be. So we'd be like, this isn't a sales pitch, but it was, how do we help you age in place?
Yeah.
Anyway, it felt like one.
Yeah.
So now what we're doing is more, we talk about it as how do we help people make the decision of should I stay or should I go? So that's
Right.
kind of what it's called now. Should I stay or should I go? And then what we do is we say, we're going to come in and host a conversation with your friends and neighbors about the realities of where you are right now. How do you make this? What resources do you need to make the decision of should you stay or should you go? And so
Right.
then we bring in a ton of resources and how do you make the decision and who is in your community that can help you? Organizers, declutterers, builders, contractors, like CPAs, financial advisors. Who are the people that are part of this conversation and who do you want to be connected with? And most of it isn't, I mean, I tell stories because that's what I'm good at, is telling stories, but most of it is them sharing stories of someone saying like, "Oh, well you like someone will say, "Well, how do you choose a rehab facility?" And I'll like, "Well, do you choose? I don't know. You go wherever the discharge planner sends you mostly." And someone else was like, well, I was told my husband's in the hospital right now. They gave me a list of places. And so we've been visiting those places. And then someone else will speak up and go, oh, yeah, I had that list too. And I chose a place and then they still sent me to the first bed. Right. And so it was that reality of like, you're living in it. Here's the people who are like, that's what they're going to tell you. This
Right.
is what's going to happen.
Right.
And then this is what it's like to sit in your house and look around and know, like, they may never send him home because I need modifications and I don't even know what to do. They've told me I need the modifications. They've come to look at my home, but how do I get them?
Right.
Who's supposed to do this next step,
Right,
right?
right. What's the next step? And that's the question. Not only the homeowners, but the family as well. The
Yeah,
kids, they don't know either because they're not in that group. You know, they haven't gone through that process. Even
yeah,
though to some extent, if they have children, they have gone through that
yeah,
process. You know, like you were saying before,
yeah,
making your home safer for your kids. It's the exact same thing. I mean,
yeah.
well, not exactly, but the concept is the same. How do you
Yeah.
make the home safer? Or how
Hmm.
do you make it accessible? Maybe safer
Yeah.
isn't the right word. How do you make it accessible so that the person can come back and do what they need to do with whatever ability they have or whatever
Yeah.
new tools that they're using. no sense in going with a walker if you can't get through the door to get into
Right.
the bathroom. I
Right.
mean, what's the point of that?
Right.
So, yeah, but you're so right in everything you're doing. I mean, I can't. I think you guys are going to be nationwide very soon because that certification, one gives you that sense of authority.
Right.
But the other thought that I had is that while, what you said before about instead of doing a lot of talking, let the group do the talking,
Hmm.
because I hope that you're taking those questions and those
Hmm.
problems and putting that maybe in your newsletter or putting that in your articles or LinkedIn or I don't know, YouTube, whatever it is that you're doing, because obviously if these people are asking those questions, others, excuse me, are too. And that's a great way to get even more traction, more attention to your business. But the other thing I was thinking while you were talking was that coming in with those resources, coming in with the group. I think it's so important. And I tell everyone in the directory, create that team for yourself,
Hmm.
because even if you can't do whatever, you have someone on your team, that can,
Yeah.
or someone who can, because then that makes you the authority that they will always call.
Yes.
Oh, call Jackie. She knows, who can do a reverse mortgage. She knows who can do outdoor ramps, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, whatever it is, new lighting, I don't know, whatever. It's that makes you the person that
Hmm.
they trust because they've met you
Right.
now. They've shook your hands. And I'm a senior in that retirement generation. And although I get a lot, I do a lot online and everything. I still, when it comes to the actual work, I still like to physically meet the person.
Yes.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, my contractor's a female, and I like that because being alone, it just feels
Hmm.
safer to have
Hmm.
her in here and versus a lot of other, you don't know. You just don't
You
know.
don't know.
You
And
don't
that's
know.
what we tell. So one of the things that I love that we're able to do, so we have we have three contractors that we generally refer to, and often people have their own, which is fantastic also. But we have these three contractors, and they're people that I know personally. They're people that not only have their caps, but all have experience caregiving. And I specifically vetted them for that because it's one thing to have the training, this and the specialized training with safety modifications, but unless you have experience being a caregiver, you will never know why a 2 inch threshold completely derails your plans for getting into a house,
It
right?
is, it's very true because it's the stories of
Yeah.
being a caregiver. It's the stories that you remember of,
Hmm.
this patient couldn't get into the bathroom because the wheelchair wouldn't go over
Yeah.
that threshold, or this patient couldn't get up the front steps, or whatever,
Yeah.
it's the stories. You're
It's
right.
the stories. And if the contractor doesn't understand how important that is, we see it all the time. Everybody sees it all the time in the building world.
Yeah,
You say you want this, and a subcontractor comes in and puts in a 1 inch threshold because what does it matter? It's not that big of a deal.
right.
And suddenly the door is built and everything's framed, and you're like, oh crap, I have a 1 inch threshold. This was supposed to be a no step entry, and there's a 1 inch threshold. So now what do I do? Right. So then we'll say, okay, you're not going to redo your doorway, right? Because you still don't, because the builder's like, it'll sell, which it will, obviously.
Yeah,
So then we come in and we're like, okay, well, we have angled wedge mats and we can correct for that distance, and that's fine. We can make that work. But none of that was necessary because they already poured a concrete ramp up to the door and then put in a 1 inch threshold, right? We're like, oh, um, and it's frustrating for the contractors. It's frustrating, we're like,
of
you need to
course.
put your outlets at this level. And the contractor's like, yep, they're all at 14 inches. And we're like, oh my God, no, it said 18, right? And now
Right,
the walls are drywalled and it's $400 an outlet to change it. No one's changing the outlets at this point, right?
right, right, right.
So the certification, when we can get in with the builder and when we build with someone who has caregiving experience, who understands this is important, then all of a sudden we're able to really to provide them with the specifics of what they need to
Yeah.
make it accessible. Like here,
Yeah.
and they're building codes. We didn't make up building codes. These are like ANSI Type A building codes. They're just compiled in the certification with a bunch of universal design sprinkled on top, right? Which is not in the building codes, but just makes life better. But when we're able to say, follow this list, and you need to have people working on this who understand the consequences of you not following this list, then all of a sudden we have a project that really the result is something that is truly accessible, right? Without a bunch of headache. And I mean, there's always headache, but a bunch of headache that can't be undone.
Right.
And it's those expensive things, people get 36-inch doorways. If they're going to build that, they're going to build that, right? They're not going to build a 35-inch doorway because no door fits that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's these little things. It's thresholds. It's where's the thermostat? It's,
Yeah.
all these other things that don't seem to matter if you don't understand why it matters.
Right.
So,
It's the everyday things.
mhm,
And I mean, I just had my kitchen remodeled and there were some problems in there that the contractor didn't she used a different contractor for the kitchen. And yeah, I mean, it's just the little
the
things
little
that
things.
you have to do every day. Like,
Mhm.
reaching for the garbage disposal. If you have to reach too far or if you have to walk around to do it, then that it just doesn't make sense. Why
Yeah,
not move it close? I mean, just dumb little
yeah.
things that had to be fixed. And yeah, there's always a problem when you're
Mhm.
remodeling. I mean, I always say you never know what's going to happen until the hammer hits the wall. And
Mhm.
you don't know
Right.
what's behind that wall. And it's like, well, we need this. It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You budget for that. But you're I mean, I think what you're doing is amazing. I think that the people in Portland or the area, how far out do you go? As
We
far
go
as,
all through Oregon.
okay,
We have so Southern Oregon, we have the two counties, Josephine and Jackson County in Oregon. Rogue Valley has kept those. They have their lifelong housing certification, and they only have one person, this woman Connie, who's fantastic. But she only works 8 hours a week, and she would very much like to retire. She is past her retirement age, and she's only stayed because there's no one else doing this program.
wow.
Um, so they have Josephine, Jackson County. We have the rest of Oregon up into Southwest Washington, and we're working on getting all of Washington. It's dependent upon the MLS system
Yeah,
because that's where we have to get the certification. So we
yeah,
work a lot with those managing boards. And in Oregon, I don't know if this is true in I know this is true in California. In other states, there's like 5 different MLS systems in Oregon, which is
really?
preposterous. Yes. And you have
Oh,
to belong to each one, and each one looks different. Um, so completely ridiculous. And so
interesting.
we're like, okay, we got two, now we need three. Oh, we need the coast. That's a different one. So we're like slowly getting in everywhere.
Wow.
Couldn't make things more difficult.
I know,
Um,
like, why? Yeah,
yeah. But it's
uh,
that's what sells for the builders because
right.
they want to market these. And we can tell them the economic value of building this way. We can tell them that 5 million people purchased homes last year. 2.5 or 1.75 million of those either purchased specifically for multi-generational or they were 65 and older. And 10% of homes in the US are aging ready. Like, okay, so 1.5 million homes purchased last year needed modification and didn't have them.
Yep,
Build the house, build
yep.
the house, right?
Well,
People are buying the house.
yeah, add to that conversation that 10,000 people a day are turning 65 every day
Yes.
for years and years and years to come.
Yeah.
So, look, if they want to sell to the demographic that has the funds and that is
Yeah.
looking, then they need to get on board with that. Where do you see the niche of aging in place going? Where do you see that like I think this niche is in the Model T era of
Mhm.
development.
Oh, yeah.
It's like just starting. I mean, it's been around for a long time,
Mhm.
but it hasn't quite grabbed attention or traction or whatever.
Mhm.
What do you think?
I'm seeing it change as I'm involved in advocacy at like state, local, city levels. So where I'm seeing it changing in terms of attention to bonuses, incentives to builders is a lot in this intersection of affordability and accessibility. So affordable housing has federal mandates of how many things have to be accessible, and those are ADA accessible, right? ADA is not a residential requirement, building requirement.
Right.
And so what I'm seeing is knowledge and understanding around we need to more people need to be using all the things that we're building, right? There's not enough housing. And then if we only build housing for people who walk on two legs, then that's the only person that can use it, right? Everyone else it's hard to use. And if we build housing that's ADA, then the only person comfortable using that property is someone in a wheelchair, right? So why are we doing that? Why are we not building everything so everybody can use it? It's ridiculous.
Right.
So I'm watching this happen. I'm seeing legislation pass that talks about we will give you X amount of land use, we'll ease up on land use restrictions if you build more to type A accessibility, which is not ADA, which is very, very, very reassuring. I'm seeing a lot more movement, understanding that, out here in Oregon, we have a lot of progressive ADU auxiliary dwelling units
You
being built,
do.
and around you can build them, you can sell the land on them. There's lots of different things, and
Right.
that's city to city, county to county sometimes. But we're seeing state recognition of that as if you're going to build these units, you need to build some of them. The state is saying you have to build some of them accessibly, visitably. Someone needs to be able to come in. We are saying who's building ADUs and who has because building costs are very expensive? It's active retirees who
Right.
want to stick an ADU on their kids' property or
Right.
on their own property so that they can keep traveling the world and have a place to come back to. They don't need this massive house anymore, but
Right.
they sure aren't going to live in a crappy single level home, right? So if they can build a really beautiful ADU that's environmentally sustainable, that's light, has big windows, all the wood, all the Pacific Northwest, aesthetic, and then they can go off and do whatever they want to do, live wherever else they live half the
Right.
year, and they can afford it, right?
Right.
So we're seeing a lot of that in terms of aging in place. I think that's a big direction. There's the trend of multi-generational living, which really tanked in the 80s, and we've seen it slowly climb and then it shot back up during COVID. It's plateauing, right? And I think
Yeah.
it will continue to grow as people see the economic reality of the economic benefits of combining families and what that means to combine care, and what it means for the older generation to be like, maybe they don't want to babysit. I mean, my parents don't want to babysit all the time. It isn't like
Right.
they want to be there to provide childcare, but
Right.
there's an awareness that, like, oh, I do want to help my kids out economically. And also, if I have a skiing accident in my 6,000 square foot home on the hill,
Right.
that's a lot. That's a hassle for me. So I think that that's really the direction I see it of this understanding of if we want to house our people in this country, and if we want to house in general, there's not enough houses that anyone can access. If we want to house the most vulnerable members of our community, which some of us do, um, a demographic within vulnerability is people who are aging. So some people can afford to create what they want to create. Most people really can't. And more than that, most people don't understand what that is. They believe the option is stay in my home or move out of my home to a senior community. If we can come in with that middle choice of you can stay in your home and you can create a home that you can live in for as long as you choose,
Yeah.
protecting choice, protecting independence, and protecting resale value so that when it is time to go, they have a home that everyone else wants as well, and they're not sacrificing economically in order to stay in their home.
Exactly, exactly. And let's not forget, not just, I mean, aging in place or, having an accessible home is not just about the physical things that
Right.
you do in the house. It's also about the community, the
Yes.
socialization that you have. So that whole multi-generation type of housing really helps to build that. I
Hmm.
mean, working in geriatrics, and then my mom-in-law lived to 102. And I have a lot of friends who are much older, 80s, and they will always say the best times in their lives were when their kids were younger and they had all this activity in the house and things going on and holidays and all of that. And that continues when you're in a multi-generational home,
Yeah.
versus a lot of others. So there's so many social factors that I think are
Mhm.
so important to put in that. And I don't know about you. I just interviewed someone the other day who opened a company for co-housing. It's
Mm,
co-life for seniors.com. I think that's what it is. And basically, his job is to find someone who can come in and live in your home and do whatever it is you need to do, driving or taking care of the house or taking care of
hmm
you or whatever, for either rent free or very low rent.
hmm
And he says that it's working out quite well for the seniors that are in their group or in their membership or however that works. Um, I think that's another option, that
hmm
golden girl type of
Yeah.
scenario, where you can stay in your home as long as it's a safe home
hmm
or accessible home to be in. So many cool things
So
to
many
do.
cool things. Yeah. And we have a program out here that is national. Home Share does that. We have Home Share Oregon. The Home Share matches people to come in and stay for a cheaper rent. We see that uh, again, one of the coolest example, not the coolest example, a fun example that happened this summer. So we have Home Builders Association does Street of Dreams out here. I don't know if they do that everywhere, but where they have all these fancy homes, and then you can go and tour them, and it's very exciting and very fun, and it's all dreaminess because who can afford them? But one
Right.
of the things they've started doing is not just having the fancy homes, but also having homes. They have those for sure, but also having homes that showcase something like middle housing, or one on this year's tour was built by students out in a rural community. So they do different things, which is great. So one of the homes, there was one home on the tour this year that was built as multi-generational living, and it was the only home on the tour. The designer of that called us in to consult on she called it the in-law quarters. The designer of the home was actually designing it for her family. Her family is going to live there 4 generations, and they owned the building company that built it. So they didn't talk about that during the Street of Dreams because she was there all the time. That would have been weird. But people were actually in her home, right? The furniture was the furniture for her home. The bedroom for her granddaughter was for her granddaughter. And the in-law quarters was for her mother, who was moving out from the Midwest. And so she had us come in, and this home, had it gone to market, would have sold for about $10 million. It was
Oh my God.
the most beautiful home I've ever seen in my entire life.
Wow.
Absolutely gorgeous. And because it was being built for 4 generations, the generations 3 and 4 were downstairs, the daughter and granddaughter, and then the designer and then her mother were on the upstairs. And there's an elevator and all these things. So we come in, she's like, "Hey, I've heard about you guys. Can you come in and consult on this home? Because my mom's going to move in here and I want to make sure." And she's an incredible designer. She's like, "I want to make sure I've done things right." So we go in the home. The first thing we see in this gorgeous wet room that's been done. I mean, it's stunning, Esther. It was just really a lot. We come in and we said, "Where are the grab bars?" And she goes, "Oh, my mom said no grab bars." We put in the blocking though. And I was like, "Okay, well, we're putting in grab bars because blocking doesn't help you when you fall. So
That's
you
right.
are creating this apartment for your mother so that she will be safe. We're putting in grab bars." And so we had some suggestions. She took those to her designer to her fixture people that she uses, and they're like, "We're not putting those in a $10 million home," which is wonderful because we were then introduced to the world of super rich high-end safety fixtures, which I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
Um, Turns out you can spend, $600 on a toilet paper grab bar holder,
Yep.
or you can get Delta for 150. Um, but we did this whole thing, and then we went through the rest of the house because it was 4 generations, and we were able to really affirm for her, like, so much of the decisions she made were not made from a universal design lens, from a accessibility lens. It was from a common sense lens.
Yeah.
And we were able to say, like, "Yes, you made this decision because it just makes sense." Also, universal design. You rounded the countertops in the island downstairs so your 3-year-old granddaughter wouldn't hit her head. Also, you're not going to hit your hip.
Right.
You made this big wet room so that you could have room to corral these children and bathe them and they could walk around.
Right.
Also, universal design if someone's in a wheelchair. So it was very enlightening for her. We were able to get grab bars in. They're gorgeous.
I can
We were
imagine.
there for the tour is 6 weeks. We were there a lot, and people would come through and say, "I thought this was accessible." We had our big "Can grab bars be sexy" banner, and we were talking about stuff. And they're like, I didn't see there's grab bars in this home." We're like, "No, you didn't, did you? Go back through." Right? Do you think this home
Wow.
looks like a hospital? It sure doesn't. Like it's the
Wow.
nicest home you'll
I
ever
would
see.
love to see pictures. I would
And
love
then
to.
the mother moved in, Esther, and she said, I thought you were going to put grab bars in.
Oh my
And we're
God.
like, yes, we did it. So
Wow.
just so fun and
That is
really
amazing.
exciting to see the interest that that generated of you can do this
Right.
beautifully. Like no one's
Right.
doing it on a $10 million scale every day,
Right.
but you can,
Right.
you know?
Right. The point is it's out there, it's starting, and then
Yeah,
I think that eventually it's going to become more affordable. It's going to
yeah.
become more mainstream, just like anything else. It's new
Anything. Yeah,
and then it starts. So I love that idea.
yeah.
I
So I
love
think
that
that's
idea.
the future. I think people will see just
Yeah.
like lever handles made the jump from
Yep.
hospitals and restaurants to homes.
Yep.
Cool, sexy grab bars are going to make the jump from like nursing homes to everyday
Yep.
homes. And as
Yep.
people see that their friends need that, and it's easier for a friend to visit your home if they can actually get up off the toilet, that it has nothing to do, it has something to do with aging. It has everything to do with being human and having bodies that break, right? And let us down sometimes. And that's really what we're talking about with
Right.
universal design and why we can take it out of that conversation specifically around aging in place because it's just about being human and
That's
needing and wanting your home to work with you no matter what your body decides to do on a given day.
I love that tagline.
Yeah.
I think that's your book.
That's my book. Well, now you've showed me how to write the book, so that's very fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy. You ever need any help with AI, just give me a call. I love
Boy,
teaching
I
it.
may because I do. So,
Oh, God. I took courses on prompt engineering and agentic AI, and I love doing it. I mean, I get my geek on with all that stuff. It's just amazing. And the other side of aging in place, I think, is also the smart home integration.
hmm
All
hmm
the things that Alexa and all the other programs can do
hmm
nowadays. It's going to be wow.
yeah,
I sometimes I wish I was younger so that I could live longer to see all this stuff.
yeah.
But then other times I'm like, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. like the I like the freedom that being in your 60s gives you. It's just like, I don't
Yeah.
know, there's just this sense of incredible freedom. It's like, yeah, anyway. Oh, so how can people get a hold of you? Obviously through the website,
Through
Livable
the
Home.
website, liveablehomes.org. Through the website, you can schedule directly with us. My phone number is the one that's everywhere. So if you want to, spam me or prank call me or actually schedule an appointment and talk about accessibility, that's me.
Cool.
Um, yeah, and so through that, we are always willing to come out. We can do virtual assessments anywhere in the country right now, as
Awesome.
well as in person. All we need is someone on the other end with
Right.
FaceTime or Zoom and a measuring tape, and we will do a full assessment and we can do all of that. So the more that people bring us into their homes and we connect, just like you do with the Aging in Place directory, we work to connect with where if you are you in Boston or are you in Texas, whoever, wherever you are,
I love it.
we can be there. And as we roll out the certification, as we begin to get traction, then that will be available as well. But it's always something to ask for. If you're working with your local, governments and saying, we want this, or your local
Right.
builders, we can help make it happen in your community, which is wonderful.
Right. That is so awesome. Jackie, thank you so much. So much.
Thank
I'm going
you.
to be putting this on 2 podcasts and 2 YouTube channels. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to put your website at the bottom so people can always see it throughout the entire thing. And then, of course, information. And then I'm going to write an article as well, put it on the website. And then at some point, I'm going through the list of all the members of the directory and highlighting them, sending out a highlight, member thing every Monday. So I'm gonna market you as much as I can.
Well, we are lucky to have you, both for what you're doing for the community and what you're doing for our marketing, which would be
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Also, I'm
Thank
going to
you.
have you as my personal tutor on AI and
Oh,
internet marketing.
yes. Call me anytime. Call me anytime. In fact, at 1:45 today, I'm actually tutoring someone on how to do Pinterest and how to go through that whole process.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so we're working on that. That is the number one source of traffic for me is Pinterest.
Really?
Yeah, you wouldn't think it, right? But it's the, as you said, it's the families that are on there. The sandwich generation is on there. And if you target them, then that is, I don't know, but that's where I'm getting a lot of traffic. That and what's building now is AI.
Yeah.
Chat and Copilot and Gemini, those are now starting to bring in more. So yeah,
Ooh,
Pinterest.
I want to talk to you about Pinterest then because that wouldn't have occurred to me. As far as I know, it's only for me to choose my tile backsplash and my pillow.
I know,
I don't
I know.
know.
And I have never used Pinterest because to me it's just so confusing. And so many
Yeah,
times you get on something, you're like, oh, that recipe looks amazing. And you
yeah,
click on it and nothing. And you're like,
right.
so what's the point? But if you do it right, it's yeah, and it's not that hard. You just need a little system. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to show them my system.
All
So
right.
yeah, maybe I'll do a webinar on that.
Oh, I would love that.
All right, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank
Enjoy beautiful
you.
Oregon, you lucky, lucky girl.
We'll talk soon. Thank you so much for having me, Esther. I just feel really honored. So I look forward to working together more and doing this work, spreading the word.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jackie. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Ciao.